When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. Time now to talk technology with Mitch Joel, tech advisor, investor, and author of Control Alt Delete. He's the founder of ThinkersOne, and he is on the line. Hi, Mitch.
Yes.
Hey, Elias, how's it going?
I'm doing really well. Now, you're on today because we've got to talk about this. The U.S. Department of Justice is pushing for major changes to Google's dominance in online search. And one of the remedies they are seeking is forcing Google to sell the Chrome browser. Now, the Chrome browser, people listening to us now, chances are that is the browser that they use to surf the web. It is now the number one browser according to some metrics here. So what do you say on this, Mitch? This push by the U.S. Department of Justice to break up the search monopoly. How serious is it?
It's very serious, and I also understand where the intent is, but the intent isn't always intelligent. And when you take an integrated system and you break it into pieces and think that this somehow creates choices, is also not to understand necessarily how these products work. And I don't want to sound like a Google apologist in this case, but often when these are done at this scale, at this point in time, what you may in fact be doing is creating either multiple monopolies now, not just one, which I don't necessarily think of as a good thing anyways, but it has to be nipped at a certain point, and now we might have just gone too far.
So let me throw an example from my life, Mitch, and where I say, geez, I could see where there could be an abuse of a monopoly happening. Because, right, it's not illegal to have a monopoly. It's illegal to abuse a monopoly. So I use Google Docs. I mean, every day. For this show, the team here, we use Google Docs to put our show together. It is just so good. Everything's online. We work in real time. We can see each other working. Google Docs is a great product. But here's one thing that's interesting. Google makes it so that some of the features of Google Docs do not work unless you are using Google Chrome. Even things, copy and pasting, pasting with formatting, pasting without formatting. If you're not using Google Chrome, they won't let you paste without formatting. So I'm stuck. I have to use Chrome just for that. And when I think about that one example, I'm like, yeah, break it up, break the sucker up, make it so that Google Docs has to work well with every browser, not just Chrome.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but that would be functionality. I don't think that's core to locking the consumer in, and I don't necessarily think that that's core to how the money is then generated or where the revenue comes from. And I think, like, to zoom it out, I would give you a counter perspective, which is AI. If we look at AI right now, what we are seeing is essentially a bloodbath in the marketplace of competition. And you don't want to be in a place where you are suddenly limiting one or two players based off of these more antiquated issues for this moving forward. So I get very nervous about these because I think of it also, look, I worked in search before Google existed. And I could tell you that at the time, Google wasn't the dominant force. You had Yahoo, there was AOL, we had meta search engines, we had all of this. And then the market, which can be brutal, moved towards Google as being this dominant product. Now, I'm not saying it's bad or I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying you should always be watching this. But at this scale, it's very scary, and I understand why it's scary, but I just look at this as, if we were breaking this up, my answer to you would be, do you want to have a different login for Chrome, a different login for Gmail, a different login?
Yeah.
And think about Apple and breaking up Apple and what that would mean to an ecosystem of the App Store if they did these things. So I don't disagree with the spirit of we need to be careful about the manipulation of large organizations. It is a legitimate concern, but this one seems somewhat strange, in particular at this point, because there are other players as well. I I mean, Amazon, if you broke up Amazon, would you really be doing a service to competition? And I think that's what we're talking about is, are you doing a service and creating more competition, or simply just another monopoly?
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, because point taken on some of the ramifications if you break up these companies. But let's look at the mobile side of things, right? Because regulators in the U.S. are also taking aim at Android. And I just want to point this out. You know, if you want to search for something on any smartphone, whether it's Android or it's an iPhone, it's de facto Google search. And this is for two reasons. One, obviously, Google owns Android and created the Android operating system. And then for the iPhone, they have thrown boatloads, billions and billions of dollars. They pay off Apple every year to make sure when you search on the iPhone, the default is Google, and it's very hard to figure out how to change that. Everyone can go in their settings and change it, but nobody does. So I look at that too, and I say, geez, that's a stranglehold, and I don't know how any competitor could have any hope in you-know-what of breaking through that.
Yeah, look, I mean, that is a $20 billion deal that was negotiated. And it's very interesting. I think Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, was recently interviewed and was asked about it. And he goes, look, there has to be some reason why the two companies are together. And he says, I can tell you it's because Google has the best browser and search quality, and Apple thinks it certainly has the best product. And so the two of them together, who are natural competitors than they are, have come up with this deal. Now, should government be involved in that deal? Should government be involved in that conversation? Some might see it as overreach. Some might see it as a form of protection. I have no answer to that, but I do look at this and go, something unique is happening. And by the way, we can even look at it and say, is it or is it not competitive? My own usage has been changing, and I do consider myself the olds. I use things like Perplexity, for example, for search more than I use search. My habits are changing because there are new entrants. OpenAI, which owns and manages ChatGPT, they have released a search that is very, very powerful and incredible. They even spoke just the other day about potentially releasing a browser that would have all of their tools in it. So it is true. We are in a world where Chrome is currently over 60% of the US browser market. That is true. It is true that Google is 90% of the search market. This is true. But you have a market that is also speaking, meaning there have been other options and there have been other choices, and consumers seem to be sticking to the products they like. This is the balance we have to be careful of.
So would your argument then be, if you don't like someone dominating search market or any other tech market, just wait a decade when a new technology supplants it?
I think there are so many players from Microsoft, Anthropic, OpenAI, Apple, Amazon that are playing in a lot of these spaces. And I do think that the market does speak. Am I into restoring competition? 100%. Do I think that there is a lot of power in these super powerful trillion-dollar market cap organizations? I do. Do I think that in that there is some business practices that we would look at and find regrettable and not great for consumers? I do. But I don't feel that it is that restrictive that other people can't come up with a great product. Case in point, ChatGPT.
I'm also looking at previous times where the Justice Department in the United States acted. And, the United States, this isn't a country that likes to do this kind of thing. There are moments where the regulators do act, but more often than not, they don't. But I look at what happened to Microsoft, right? When Microsoft went through very similar actions, well, now look at Microsoft. I mean, people thought, oh, this is over. This is going to ruin Microsoft's business. Well, now we look at them, still one of the most valuable companies in the world. They've branched off into other domains. Could the argument be made that even breaking up Google, if the company is strong and great, it'll remain being that way?
Money is power. Power is money. And so look at Microsoft's investment in OpenAI, billions and billions of dollars. Look at what Microsoft did. They invested in cloud computing and enterprise solution software, making them one of the most powerful and best managed companies in the world as well under Satya Nadella. So yes, this is the thing we have to look at. If you're going to break it up and spend taxpayers' dollars, make sure you have a result at the end of it, not just a company that's going to go off with their trillions of dollars and do more acquisitions in other areas, making them a more powerful monopoly in other industries.
Do you think there's, because this is what the Justice Department is demanding, it's one of a series of remedies, they could offer to do other things. Do you think there's a halfway point that makes regulators happy?
I do. And I think that it is normal for them to be paying attention to this. I also do think that you do want to be in a place where you are enabling all these organizations to be great at business. So, as long as we're going to keep the laws that we have and have a form of capitalism, what I'm proposing is the idea that let the market play out and have oversight. But if you want to do these long form, long term, never ending cases against corporations, you have to figure out a real outcome that you want and then a real resolution path that's going to be quicker than in that time they purchased 4 or 5 other industries.
Well, I'm going to propose that Google just pledges to make Google Docs work the same in any browser, and then I will be totally on board. And then we didn't even get into YouTube, right? This is the other thing that regulators are looking at because there's some dominance there. Okay, listen, Mitch, we got to leave it there. It's always a pleasure catching up with you.
Thanks, Elias. Have a great day.
That's Mitch Joel right there. He's the founder of ThinkersOne.